Thank you, Bernie. Thank you for the introduction. My name is David Lin. I'm the anchor for KITCO News, and I'm pleased to be joined by my two co-moderators for today, Austin and Aaron Arnold of the Altcoin Daily channel. And our esteemed panelist today is Balsam Danhach, who is the CEO of FTX in the MENA region. We'll be talking about all things FTX, particularly within this region. Now, how many of you in the audience is currently using FTX right now? This is not a sponsored question, by the way. I'm just genuinely curious. All right. Well, let's hopefully we'll get a few more hands by the end of the interview. No pressure. All right, let's begin. So, Balsam, I'd like to just open up the panel by having you talk about your current project. From my understanding, the FTX MENA has not officially launched yet. What are you currently doing? When are you launching? What's your strategy pre-launch? And we'll talk about post-launch.
Thank you. This is not intimidating at all, having three moderators, by the way. But thank you for having me. So we'll talk about FTX MENA. About 9 months ago, we started setting up our operation over here. So we haven't really launched in the region, but we are licensed. We are ready to do so. For the past, give or take, 8 months, we've been working with the Virtual Asset Regulatory Authority on getting our license out. And thankfully, in July, we were issued with the first regulated crypto exchange platform to operate out of the UAE. And we're very excited about that. Over the next 2 months, our main focus is on actually launching with our own landing page into the UAE, as well as streamlining the process for customers to onboard and offboard. Most of the products that now whoever is using FTX is familiar with, we will be able to replicate those on the local platform. So in terms of a project, it's the idea is moving or giving access to local investors, local institutions to the same products that we're offering on a global scale.
Balsam, what's your why? You come from traditional finance. Why does cryptocurrency excite you?
Originally when everything's, when crypto started developing, I come from a traditional finance, and I technically blame my education for being so resistant to the idea, because we're taught in a way of how do you consider financial assets and how you look at investments. But the more you see the utility of cryptocurrency and the more we've seen the application of it, you cannot but get excited about the potential. I think the same as a lot of people at the beginning, we thought this is going to be a fad, something that just passes and goes away. But as we see the application of it, and we see the potential of it, not just in the region, but globally, when we're talking about beyond investment, beyond looking at it as an investment vessel, but when we're talking about trade, when we're talking about cross-border trade, when we're talking about a lot of the things or a lot of the issues that we find with fiat currencies, we see that cryptocurrency can solve that speed as well.
Balsam, we had a chance to eat breakfast together the other day, so great to be up here with you. And there are so many questions I wanted to ask you then, like how are the eggs, or what's over there. But no, I'm just kidding. No, let's talk about FTX.
Those are important questions, though.
Yeah, important questions.
We'll circle back offline.
So FTX Dubai, you guys are starting off with offering regulated derivatives products to institutional investors and then retail investors. Can you explain the strategy with that?
Yeah, so we'll start with the regulator, right? I mean, we understand that this is a new regime that is regulating cryptocurrencies. And one of the main concerns that Vara, and we've discussed that with them, is they want to make sure that they're protecting the consumer in the UAE. They're giving them the protection that they need to be investing with us. And with that comes obligation that we're rolling our products into the region. We want to target institutions. We want to target experienced investors before we start approaching the retail customer. Not because we don't value the retail customer. In fact, if we look at the demographics here, we believe that the retail customer is quite different than the investors in Europe or other places, due to the fact that the wealth distribution sits with younger crowds in this region. So we're very interested in the retail space. However, for us to be able to test the system, the local system, and also for us to make sure that we're compliant, regulated, we're saying that we're going to go with the institutional, we'll go with the experienced investors before we open up to retail.
The Middle East and North Africa region is a developing market by traditional economics classification terms. what is where are we in the MENA region in terms of the crypto adoption curve relative to North America and Europe?
So I kind of repeated this on a couple of other panels. I think for us in the region, and I know it is considered the developing region, but it's the first time that we have a technology that we're not trailing behind. So in other words, we've always had technology that came to the region, and then we had a learning curve. We had to wait 10 years or 15 years to follow suit. We've seen that with e-commerce. We've seen that with the internet. Now it is a little bit different. I think the region, Dubai specifically, we are positioned to be a hub for Web3. We're positioned to be a hub for blockchain. And I think over the next few years, you'll see that the region is actually leading within that space. The talent is available. There's a lot of work on attracting more talent into the region. Funds are available. The appetite in the market is available. But also, you see the push from the government, from the leaders in the region over here, to actually accelerate regulations, to make it easy for companies like ours and other companies within the ecosystem to test the potential of this industry.
I want to take a little poll from the audience, bring you guys back in here. How many of you guys have stopped by the FTX booth this week? All right, quite a lot of people. We still have a few more to get to. I saw you there today, and you're making yourself very open to the people, just answering questions. In your expansion in the Middle East, what do you wish more people understood?
So it's been quite a pleasant experience actually being at the booth, because you get questions from all different audiences. People that have been in crypto and know about it more than I do, and there's people that are just hearing about it. What we're looking for is, I'm not going to say we're looking for educating people, but they can do that on their own. But I think there's a lot of misconception about cryptocurrencies. There's a little bit, I would say, bad rep, and it is expected. It is something new. If I was a bank, I would be resistant. If I'm a central bank, I would be resistant as well. People in the industry would be resistant to a new instrument that you're introducing. But when we put things in scale, when we put the benefits of what we think we could achieve, it is a lot more than what we're doing here. And that said, it is difficult to say that we're trying to simplify it. It is not simple. Whether it's trading in crypto or understanding crypto, no one expects it to be simple. But at the same way that if we simplify trading in crypto, it doesn't mean that it's a simple instrument. It is the same way that you can go buy an AutoCAD program online. It doesn't make you an engineer. So us acting in this ecosystem, we're simplifying the process of you being able to trade, but it is still a very complex instrument to trade in. And that is something we try to tell people. I mean, we're meeting a lot of people, but we're not trying to say that this is an easy win game. This is something that we believe will have many utilities, not just within this space. And we're happy to talk to them about it.
And, I'm going to ask a very basic question here, so feel free to say as much or as little as you want on it. But I'm sensing that people are interested in FTX, what you're doing. So for the folks at home or the folks in the audience who are thinking about, jumping onto FTX, why would somebody choose FTX?
Aside than us being one of the biggest crypto exchanges in the world, I think what stands behind FTX is the way we run business. Or we are customer-centric in a lot of things that we do. And also our founder, Sam Bankman-Fried, he is also a sponsor of that ecosystem. But one thing that I always tell the staff and the people that we talk to, it's not about us competing with others. It's about us talking about what we do best. And in our case, I think in terms of dependability, safety, security, we've been leading across other platforms. We put regulations first. So when you're dealing with FTX, you're sure that you're dealing with a regulated crypto exchange anywhere that we're operating in. So I think that should give them the comfort that where your money is going, hopefully it's not going to disappear.
Balsam, I've actually had the pleasure of, because you brought up Sam, I have actually interviewed Sam Bankman-Fried a while ago, and I asked him what is one of the most important investment themes today, and excuse my language, but he said memes are really fucking important. So to that point, Balsam, what is the offering of cryptocurrencies like on the MENA platform? is that anything different from the global exchange of FTX? And are there any regulations around what you can offer or can't offer in the MENA region?
So for the most part, we're going to be almost replicating everything we do. And I say almost because regulations do
Right.
play into some specifics. But I think the majority of what we're offering on the international platform will be available to consumers over here with certain restrictions, as you said, on some tokenized coins that you might find on the global scale we might not have here due to the type of industry or due to the type of the token. But we're talking about a very small scale. Now, the one thing that we're interested in, and we talked about a lot of people over here, is we are interested also in seeing what we can get as a local MENA region entity that we can actually tokenize and list on our exchange. So we're looking forward to seeing more companies develop here. There's a lot of interest in people wanting to list coins on FTX. And hopefully with us being here in the region, it might get a little bit more streamlined for us to avail that also to the global clients.
We've kind of already touched on a lot of this big picture, but just looking at 2023 specifically, by the time we're all at this conference next year on this stage, maybe 4 or 5 moderators for your panel at that time, what is on the roadmap in 2023 specifically?
For us, we're setting everything up here. So our main focus has been the UAE. What we're building here is a hub. So we're trying to expand from here to kind of cover the whole GCC region as a start. And I know our name, FTX MENA, is a bit misleading considering we're just in the UAE now. But the idea is to cover the GCC as a second step and then hopefully the whole MENA region. We think the appetite is available. When we look at the numbers, and these are just numbers that I'm not going to say they're misleading, but as they sit now, they're impressive. We've seen $500 billion in terms of cryptocurrency trade in the MENA region, and that includes Turkey and Egypt as well. But we're talking about a very small piece. I think within a year's time, we're going to see that volume a lot bigger. What we're seeing here is we have a lot of professional investors, but we haven't seen a lot of traction with institutions because they're waiting for the regulations. They're waiting for the bank to be on board. And I think we're going to see a lot more of that. A lot of big institutional investors going on board with FTX MENA. And then hopefully, from this hub over here, we're able to service not just the region that we outlined, but also the surrounding regions.
Thinking of, this region specifically, or maybe this is something that could apply to cryptocurrency throughout the world, but 10-year time frame, what do you think is maybe some of the big challenges that you guys will have to face? Like, maybe it's not regulations like it is in the US, or maybe it is, but like, what do you think are some of the bigger challenges looking forward?
Well, I mean, in this ecosystem, when you're talking about 10 years, that's, because things are changing from one month to the other. But I'll speak about cryptocurrency in general. I think when we talk about it being an instrument for trade, and we're talking about cross-border trade and the expansion of its use, we still cannot neglect the fact that we're talking about a lot of regions that don't have the technological framework. They don't have the infrastructure to utilize what we think is a potential. So I think some of the obstacles are going to be actually the availability of infrastructure. We're going to reach a point where I think technology is a little bit, we're too early to enter into certain sectors. But I think it is there to stay, of course, as we all know. And I think it will just expand in ways that we can't maybe envision at this time. We're talking about 10 years.
And when you say infrastructure, does that mean something like just getting more cell phones in people's hands so they're able to log on?
It could be as simple as that, but it could also be infrastructure when it comes to banking systems, when it comes to, again, talking about regulations, when we talk about not just technology, but the whole infrastructure that could support.
I'm going to put you on the spot here, Balsam, be as direct as possible, but Binance just got hacked for $580 million. What is FTX going to do to prevent something happening like that on your platform?
Well, it is on the spot because we try not to talk about competitors, and it's unfortunate what we saw, I think, over the last weekend. we can't comment on what happened with them, but we can comment on what we're doing
Of course,
internally.
yes.
And what we're doing internally is things like that when they happen, it kind of puts us back in place as in, okay, we need to go back to basics and we need to recheck everything we're doing and make sure we're always up to date, make sure that we're always ready for any type of incident like that happening. But again, it is an internal continuous exercise to make sure that something like that does not happen on FTX.
I'll open it up to one more question each for the from the Arnold brothers, and then we'll open the floor up to a few questions. So go ahead.
I'll just jump in real quick because I don't have anything specific. But is there anything that you wanted to touch on that we haven't asked yet?
No, I think 3 of you guys have been doing a great job.
Okay. Cool.
That was my question, so we can.
All right. We've got a few minutes left. Do we have any questions? Yeah, gentleman in the red.
Hi. Are you guys considering any regulation related or compliance, sorry, like Sharia compliance, which is related to the region here? And are you building any partnership with banks, local banks here, for easy off transfer of money? Thank you.
Thank you. It is a very valid question. We have, in terms, I'll answer the second part of the question. We are in discussion with a lot of banks over here, and thankfully the appetite is there for collaboration. What stops us, or what is kind of, I wouldn't say slowing things down, but some things have to take time to mature. Some things are technical, some things have to do with the regulations, but we are in discussion with plenty of banks, and I can assure you that very soon we'll be able to, streamline the process where onboarding is happening locally, offboarding is happening locally. You're dealing with a local bank, and you know where your funds are sitting, not in another country. So that, to answer your second question. The first question is of interest, and it is of interest of this area and also some areas in East Asia when we're talking about Sharia compliant instruments. I think for us, I'm not going to pretend like we have started that conversation. However, with a lot of elements that we deal with, we cannot do everything on our own. We are going to rely on the ecosystem itself to offer us some solutions. And we've seen a lot of banks, and we've had some discussions at our booth with a lot of banks that are looking at that aspect itself. So we do believe that there will be some solutions that will be put out there. But again, we are going to rely on other players in the ecosystem to help us out with that.
Anybody
other
else in the
questions?
audience?
Hello, how are you? When we talk about the GCC region, what about Saudi Arabia? We are facing difficulties to deposit and withdrawal from Saudi Arabian local banks. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. To us, Saudi Arabia is a huge market. I mean, not just in the terms of cryptocurrency. We've seen it in any other trade. What we know about Saudi Arabia is that there's a huge push in terms of regulations, and we're following that closely. I think the difficulty you're facing is the same as other countries where you don't have clear regulations out yet. We believe once those regulations are out, then we can see what is our course of action. But that should facilitate things for all users, whether FTX or any other players in regions that they don't have specific regulations. Because you have to understand the banks have to play their role as well in terms of protecting the consumer. And when they don't have regulations to rely on, they're usually risk. They're not going to take that risk but hopefully in the near future that should happen.
I'm actually going to jump in with a question that just came up with because Aaron and Austin and I were just talking right before this panel, and we were talking about the concept of holding your own keys, not your keys, not your coin. And one of the issues, not just with FTX, but just a more philosophical issue with having your coins on an exchange is that there's always the risk of either counterparty risk or either the exchange shutting down or either the exchange not being able to pay back your coins for whatever legal and or financial reasons. Does FTX offer any sort of guarantee that customers will be able to retrieve their coins at any given time?
In terms of guarantees, there's always a guarantee that if everything goes well, then everyone is happy. But I think we've never had an incident that we did stop any of that happening. But also on top of that, we do have let's say an FTX insurance fund that is funded completely by us internally within the company to cover instances like that we need to. So in addition to complying to all regulations that we have to maintain certain levels of capital or certain levels of reserves, we haven't had an instant that we stopped anyone from withdrawing their funds.
In the case of a liquidity freeze or any sort of a default from your counterpart, what would happen in that case? Would you, I mean, we saw what happened with Celsius, given that Celsius is not an exchange, but in the case of a severe market meltdown, would there be a risk of a quote-unquote bank run, and how would you manage that?
I think in terms of liquidity, we're very healthy as a company in terms of liquidity, and we always approach things to make sure that in case something that happens, we're always able to, in a way, make sure that we do not get to a point where we're restricting people from withdrawing their cash. So we're very cautious on how much liquidity we have, and we do have partners that help us out with that.
Is that a regulatory thing you have to comply with, or is it just something internally that you, like a metric that you follow?
It is both. So basically, we always follow regulations, but also we have our own internal regulations that are usually more strict than the regulations that are offered to us.
We have a few more minutes. Okay, one more. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Hi, my name is Chris from Lamy. I'm aware that you're focusing predominantly on institutional investors, but still, what is your strategy to increase the comfort level of private or residential investors to make them their belief and their comfort zone stronger in cryptocurrency?
It comes in two ways. First, the fact that we're seeing all these companies in the region, and the fact that we're seeing competitors in the region is very good for us, because it gives an education level where people know more about cryptocurrency. But in terms of comfort, the fact that we're pushing to get regulated here, and we got regulated here, that falls into providing the normal retail customer with the comfort that you're not dealing with some obscure company another place in the world. You're dealing with a local company. You're dealing with local people that if you have any problems, you can come to us, or if you have any issues with us, or if there's anything that happens, you have the protection of the UAE law. And it's the same thing with any other jurisdiction that we're opening in, is the fact that we want to give the retail customer that comfort that you're dealing with a regulated exchange, and that's where it all starts.
I'm getting the signal that we only have a few minutes left, so I think I'm going to ask the final question. Balsam, first off, thank you for taking the time with us. I really do feel I have a much better understanding of the expansion in Dubai from FTX. Final question, what's a book or a podcast that you've listened to in the last few months, any topic that you would recommend?
A book that I recommend is...
He wants you to say Altcoin Daily.
I was going to do that, but they'll know it's a cheap shot.
We're a YouTube channel.
No, there's a book that I read a few months, and I am biased because it's written by a friend of mine when I was back in Lebanon, which is the Bitcoin Standard. And it kind of, I wouldn't say simplify, but it brings out a huge understanding of what is the difference between cryptocurrency, fiat money, and he just issued another book that I'm also reading. It's called the Fiat Standard. But it's a very intuitive book. It doesn't go too technical, but it kind of explains the benefits of going to Bitcoin at that time, because that's the main focus of his book. But yeah, I mean, it's an amazing book if you guys feel like reading.
Love that book. I recommend it too. I encourage everybody to check out the FTX booth out there. Thank you, Balsam.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Give a round of applause.
Thank you.
Amazing. Be sure to check out the FTX booth. We're going to move on to our next piece of programming. Moving to the stage for the evolution of blockchain gaming, taking play and own to the masses. Play and own.